What is up, everybody? I don't think I really have to say anything about that game to show it was one of the best college games we've seen in a very long time. And of course, I'm talking about Kansas and Villanova. That's the video. Goodbye. I'm kidding. Okay, so we got everything we wanted out of North Carolina and Duke. Well, everything that non-Duke fans wanted from North Carolina and Duke. And I know that Les will be breaking down the game in another video, the championship game tonight between the Tar Heels and the Jayhawks. But it was something Les tweeted after that game, and something he said on the podcast multiple times, that I'm going to talk about today. And you'll have to excuse me, I'm recovering from a little bit of strep and a little bit of the flu, so I sounded like Kermit the Frog most of the weekend, so sounding like this is probably an achievement, but you can roast me in the comments. I'm not going to see them anyway. I'm made of steel at this point. Alright, so, the tweet in question is from Les, was, sports aren't always a Disney movie, and we're seeing that right now, and friends, I'm just going to say this. Have you ever gone to a movie theater and you're amped up to see the movie you've paid to see? You've got your popcorn, you've got your girl, you've got your, what's the other thing? Soda, you've got your 3D glasses if you can do them. I can't do 3D glasses because I have real glasses. But anyway, you're sitting there in the movie theater, you're watching the movie, and one of the previews comes on. And it just blows your mind wide open. It's for a superhero movie you didn't know was coming out, an adaptation of a book you didn't know was coming out, and you're just like, holy bleep, that was epic. I can't wait to see that. And it kind of distracts you from the real movie you're going to see. It doesn't detract from the movie in the moment when it starts, but like for that brief, well, not brief, it's like 20 minutes now of film previews. For that brief 20-minute film preview period, you're just thinking to yourself, damn, that was a cool trailer. I'm going to go see that in a few months. And then it distracts you for a bit from the real movie. Now, what does that have to do with that thing Les tweeted? Well, Les was tweeting about the Duke angle of this, which was, we were all having a good time, and if we had done it, I would have been like, rigged, 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 3 ways to Sunday, because, that was the fun storyline. It was The Last Dance, it was everything and more about Duke, because that's just what we had accepted. We thought that when Duke got that path to the Final Four, it meant we were going to get that. And in reality, Duke was the really flashy preview. The really cool movie that's still going to be very good, that's still going to be talked about for ages, that's distracting us from the real movie, which is North Carolina. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, Matt, what the hell are you talking about? And let me explain this to you. We forget that North Carolina also is going through what Duke is about to go through now, which is replacing a legendary coach with a former player. So let's review this for factual information. So we've got, on April Fool's Day, a guy who's won 3 national titles at North Carolina, Roy Williams, one of the great coaches, statesmen in college basketball history, announces his retirement. April Fool's Day. Not exactly the greatest day to announce your retirement. You lose Garrison Brooks, you lose him. Walker Kessler transfers to Auburn, and by the way, he's going to win the Defensive Player of the Year. And to replace him, you get a guy who's more famous, in my generation at least, for being the guy who was on College Game Day next to Jay Billis. And you're just wondering, wow, that's interesting. And I even remember reading in North Carolina because I knew it was a similar situation to Mike Woodson. They were a little bit unsure about hiring in-house too. So you lose a couple of guys. One takes his COVID year of eligibility and goes to Mississippi State. The other one goes to Auburn and, like I've said, wins Defensive Player of the Year. You hire a guy who's more, in Hubert Davis, who's more famous to a lot of people for being on television than even being a player, really, even though he's won a national championship as a player. And the season starts up. And North Carolina looks okay. They go out, they got Brady Manick, who's like, we all remember is that kid with the hair from Oklahoma. And we start the season. And they beat the teams they're supposed to beat. But when they play Purdue, they get destroyed. They play UK, they get destroyed. Let's fast forward now. They narrowly escape Louisville at the low point of their season. The absolute nadir of their season. And it's just like, wow. If Armando Bacot doesn't, elbow a guy in the face, they probably lose that game. And then the Duke game happens, the first Duke game. They lose by 20 at home. They're 16-7 at this point, and they've dropped off a lot of the bracketology boards in one of like the weakest years in history. And we're just thinking about the down ACC, the way that they're playing. They don't have any good wins, and even though they're about 11 games over 500, they don't look dangerous. They're a team that barely beat Louisville. They're a team that barely beat Clemson. They lost by 20 to Duke and everybody else good they've played. And then they go home after losing by 20 at home to losing at Duke. Losing by 20 at home to Duke, I'm sorry. They have a team meeting. They go through the motions. They decide to commit themselves to defense and go on a hell of a winning streak. And then it's like, okay, well, maybe North Carolina is good enough to make the tournament. They don't have really a lot of good wins. And then, of course, we all know what happens at the last home game. It's a gutsy performance. It's an amazing performance. And they actually end up spoiling their major rivals' last home game. Not only the last home game of the season, the last home game for their Hall of Fame NBA gold-winning coach. It's shocking. It's shocking to see that, and that solidifies their berth in the tournament. Then they kind of go through a little bit of a down phase again, where like they had a run in the tournament, I guess. They won one game, then they lose to Virginia Tech, and we all know what happened to Virginia Tech. And they make the tournament as an 8 seed, basically saying, you weren't great enough in the regular season to earn anything higher, but you're not terrible. And they get paired with a team like Marquette, who's in a very deep conference, and just in a physical game, blow them out by one of the biggest margins in tournament history. Move on to the round of 32. They get number 1 seed Baylor, who's playing well but is often injured. They get that huge lead. Brady Manek gets ejected on pace to scoring what seemed like he was going to get 60 points. They blow that huge lead and have to come back in overtime to beat the defending national champions after blowing a huge lead and their best player gets ejected. Wow. After that, who do they have to play? They have to play one of the old bloods of college basketball again, one of the blue bloods, UCLA, who's injured but still playing well. And they need a late shot from Caleb Love to lift them into that game. Okay, so what happens next? Well, then they have to play Jimmy Chitwood Eatert himself at St. Francis, and they blow them out. St. Francis, I meant St. Peter's, and they blow them out. And then, well, who do they get in the Final Four? They get the narrative. They get the it's rigged. They get the same guy who basically helped them get to this point because they beat them in that last home game at Duke. They get Duke again. And in one of the most epic college basketball games of all time, Armando Bacot looks like he's done something horrible to his ankle in the middle of crunch time, and you're just thinking, it can't end this way. This can't be how it ends. I mean, we got to have the best players on the court, and he does come back out there and hustle for every jump ball like he's been doing, and North Carolina wins. With a first-year head coach, where a future defensive player of the year in the country transfers out, where they started 16-7 with no good wins and lost by 20 to Duke. And now they're in the national championship game. With a first-year head coach, a lot of people weren't sure of even in that fan base. And if this was the Water Boy or if this was the Bad News Bears, we'd be rooting for North Carolina. But because of North Carolina, we're not. And, that's okay. I mean, North Carolina has 5 national championships. It's not like they're a long-suffering fan base. But still, I think we've neglected one of the better stories here. This script doesn't even make sense by, Disney original movie standards. I mean, I know Brady Manek looks like Teen Wolf, but he's not. Or Teen Wolf, yeah, that's right. He's the one who played basketball. There's no Air Buds here. There's no magic formula. There's no Michael's secret stuff. This is just a really good, interesting, storied run that we've kind of taken the spotlight off of because of what was going on just 10 miles down the road. So with that being said, it's going to be interesting tonight to see whether North Carolina completes one of the great stories in college basketball history or whether Kansas spoils the fun. But either way, I think it's interesting to note that the true Disney Channel movie was going on in Chapel Hill and not Durham. And this is even more fun because I know Les can't do anything about it except not post it. So that's my take on tonight's game, which is North Carolina having one of the great storybook runs of all time. Hopefully, I'll be feeling better and I won't sound so whatever I sound like right now. But anyway, let's all enjoy some college basketball tonight because after tonight, We're going to be starving until feast week, people, but we do get baseball back, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that the next time we see y'all. So enjoy tonight's game. Don't drink and drive if you are inclined to do that. And just have fun. Just enjoy some great basketball. Y'all have a great night.